Howdy, folks. Oh boy, I should have saved that one for our Cry Macho episode. So welcome back, third episode. I'm Gabe,
And I'm Will.
and this is Premiere Reviews, the Premiere Reviews podcast. Thanks for coming back. We've got 2 episodes under our belt now. So, this ain't our first rodeo. God, all of them.
All of them should have been for the last
Yeah.
episode.
Will, you look well.
Oh,
You look well.
thank
For
you.
our audio
You do
listeners,
too.
Will looks well. We're wearing similar outfits to the last time, I think, and maybe the exact same. I don't know.
yeah. It's like we might have filmed them the same
Yeah.
day.
Oh man, scheduling. It's weird how things work. So today we're gonna be talking about probably one of my favorite films of all time, Airplane.
Yes.
We'll just let that hang there for a moment. Just Airplane. All right. Yeah. No, I love this film. I love this film growing up.
I do too. I do too. And I still love it. I mean,
I stopped loving it.
You
I
st-
stopped loving it. I loved it all throughout childhood, but then last year I said, no, I hate Airplane.
Well, I know you
No.
said you loved it growing up. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
no.
still-
I love it to this day. It holds up remarkably well.
Yes. There's a few things that wouldn't.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly today. Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But it man, you're really tickled pink by that one. That was probably one of my worst jokes.
Oh, that was pretty funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, so there are some things that you couldn't do today, but at the same time, I don't examine films that way. I'm like, when I don't consider films to be time travelers, I consider myself to be a time traveler when I watch older films, and so I go back and I watch something, and so I'm like, okay, that's how things were then. They're not good now. It's not good now. But it's a movie from 1980, so I'm going to watch it like I'm watching a movie from the 1980s as opposed to watching a movie from today. If
Right.
Airplane was made today, I'd be like, I'd be like, I don't know if I would have gone with that. But
Yeah.
it wasn't made today. It was 1980s, and so I'm like, all right, yeah, no, I can see that. So you have to learn to appreciate things in their time and not in your time. And if it ruins it for you, then obviously, that's fine. But I appreciate things in their time.
Right. I agree too, and it is. I mean, I would consider it definitely a classic, and it is.
And even within that, it's despite having like problematic things, it's still probably one of the least problematic comedies
Yeah?
that still holds
Yeah.
up really well.
That's
There's only
true.
like a few things in there where I'm like, yeah, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that line today. But other than that, yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. I still think it's pretty funny. So
Yeah, we did things a bit in reverse today. This was the opinions.
Yeah.
We did opinions first
Oh.
because everyone loves Airplane.
yeah. So let's. I think it's good. What's your opinion?
I also think it's good.
All right. So
All right, so next week we're gonna be talking about Dear Evan Hansen, I think. So thanks for coming along, guys. I've been Gabe.
I'm Will. Okay. All right. Well, we could have just ended it right there, but
Yeah.
no. And actually, next week next week. Do we know what we're doing next week?
I just threw Dear Evan Hansen out there. Give us your thoughts. I think Dear Evan Hansen could be a good one to talk about.
Yeah, I will say though, I think that the Monday before Halloween, we have confirmed that we are going to do the film Young Frankenstein.
Yes, Young Frankenstein. Don't worry, audience. I came through for you on that.
Yeah,
I came
yes.
through for you.
That was Gabe's suggestion,
Mhm.
and I love that film too. But all right, we can.
Didn't your family used to like project it onto your garage wall like every Halloween?
on Halloween? Yeah, we did because it's classic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Mel Brooks, I
Yeah,
mean,
how can you not love him?
yeah.
But this isn't about Mel Brooks.
Yes,
This
yes.
is about the Zucker
Well,
brothers.
Yes, we'll get into that film closer to Halloween. All right, so I'll go ahead and just kind of jump into some of the production kind of aspects and kind of some of the technical info and stuff. So the film Airplane was directed by Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker. And the film starred Robert Hayes and Julie Haggerty. And also, we can't forget Leslie Nielsen, which he's a national treasure. He's a national treasure.
And we're gonna steal him,
we're gonna steal
like the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, he's I think just one of the greatest comedy actors out there.
Yeah,
And
and he
Right,
wasn't a
right.
comedy actor. He was trained classic straight
Yeah.
man, uh, love interest, leading man. That was him his whole life. And then he gets old. Next thing you know, boom, most brilliant comedy actor ever. He was a genius. And David Zucker, the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrahams were just brilliant for casting non-comedians for the role.
yeah, well, yeah, you said traditional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had great comedic intuition, but he wasn't a trained comedian.
Right.
So.
Right. And in the film, he's a very what is it? What am I?
He's a straight man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like very,
Not in the modern sense. We're talking the
Yeah.
comedic sense. Like
Yes.
he's just plays things very flat and very straight, and it's perfect.
Yeah. And we'll get into why that's funny here in a little bit. So the budget for the film was actually $3.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
and it made $171 million.
Yeah.
So
Worth noting, the budget converted to today, same budget as Cry Macho.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear the, well, you try making a movie thing. Because, look.
Well, it's actually a little less, because I think when I told you I said it was $9 million. The budget was $9 million,
yeah, okay, never mind.
which
then,
converted to today would be like $30 million. So
yeah. Okay,
it's-
so this was even cheaper than Cry Macho. So
Yeah.
still, even better for my argument.
yeah. So that was my bad. It was so.
And
it
you'll
was,
regret it.
Yes. So it was released July 2nd, 1980. Right there.
On my birthday. If my birthday was July 2nd.
1980.
Yeah, 1980.
And so that's kind of the base info. I did want to mention, and I don't think very many people know this, but Airplane was actually based off of a film called 0 Hour, which was made in 1957. And that film was actually it was a drama.
Yeah.
And it Airplane is basically
It shot for shot.
Yeah.
And yet so much superior.
Yeah.
Like in every single way. And granted, they're trying to do different things with the same exact story and everything, but it's I don't know. If you're ever concerned, like, well, comedies just don't do as well, this is a perfect shining example. You had a parody film, not even just a comedy. You don't have to be super original. If you're concerned about writing your comedies or anything like that because you can't think of a good plot, do a parody. Do a good parody, but do a parody, because this is one of the top 100 films of all time. And
Right.
It's just a parody film. You watch 0 Hour and Airplane side by side, exact same movie. It's just one of them is good and one of them is 0 Hour.
well, yeah. So it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. Basically, this shot for shot. Even some of the dialogue is the same.
Mhm.
Granted, I mean, most of the dialogue was changed, because Airplane is a comedy and 0 Hour was not.
Yeah.
Not intended to be, at least.
And obviously you don't have like outrageous things happening in 0 Hour.
Yeah, that's true. But and another thing, the main character, I think, was the same. He had the same name, Ted Stryker.
Yeah, Ted
think-
Stryker.
Was the same character name for both films, and to so yeah, it was meant to be a parody film, of course, but Paramount actually bought the rights, or they bought the film 0 Hour just to kind of cover all bases.
Even though parody is protected under the First Amendment, it's
Right.
You don't want to open up to a lawsuit, even if it's one that you would win handily. Because
Right.
It's,
Right.
especially at the time, this was a pretty small film, and so.
Yeah, and I mean, nowadays it's
Also, the rights to
really-
0 Hour were probably like $8 because it was
Yeah.
a flop and terrible.
and from 1957.
Yeah, and from 1957. So.
But yeah, they just wanted to kind of make sure that there was no way that there could really be any lawsuits. So the Paramount bought the rights for that film as well. And that would today today people love lawsuits
Yeah.
for not to name any companies particular, but it's just it's really there's a lot of legal convolution in today.
Yeah. But like, if you want to work in Hollywood and make like a movie, this was explained to me by one of my professors who taught producing. No film is going to get made if there's not a lawyer. Like no big budget film with a studio backing is going to get made without a lawyer. You always have money set aside for a lawyer because someone's going to sue you. Someone's going to sue you for some reason or another.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to cover a little bit, the technical information.
Yeah.
But I think I'll pass it here to Gabe to kind of talk about what he would like to talk about.
Yeah. Well, so this is like, I wrote a paper on airplane for my FTV 460 class, and I talked about, which is like narratives in American cinema, and I talked about how airplane structures jokes and how it exemplifies farce, and how someone could write and perform farce very easily just by following, the rules that airplanes set out. And it's really simple. All you need, if you know anything about narrative, all it has to do with is cause and effect and the physics of the world. Not like, oh, look, if I throw this ball over here.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like that, but physics is just how the world functions. That's all that physics is. It's breathing is as much physics as throwing a ball is physics. And so that's you have to understand those two things, and you can break it. Probably the easiest way to understand this concept is within the world of airplane, and this is an easy joke if you want to do farce of any kind. Very simple. All you have to do, if someone says something, that is exactly what happens. No matter what, that is exactly what happens. One of the best jokes in the film. Ted Stryker says, and that's when my drinking problem started. What does that mean? What does drinking problem mean in film? We assume that means that he has struggled with alcohol and that he's not good at it. No, literally, he has a problem drinking. He cannot drink water or any liquid. He just splashes it on his face, and it always misses his mouth. That is hilarious anytime that he mentions that. And then for the rest of the film, anytime he goes to take a drink, he misses his mouth. It's amazing. They commit to such a stupid joke. One of them says, it's a different, Ted Stryker later in the film, he says, it's a different type of flying altogether. And this is a joke that I did not get until like recently, like last year when I rewatched the film. I did not get it because he says it's a different type of flying altogether. And then it cuts to everyone else and they go, it's a different type of flying. What is that? What they did was they played with the language. All they did was change the language. They didn't change anything.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't actually change the words. What they did was they changed the connotation of the language. And so all they did was add a comma that you don't get to know about until the joke happens. And so it's a different type of flying. Now all together. And so they all repeat it together. All of them together repeat the joke. That is genius, and I didn't know it for the longest time. So those are really simple ways. You just think, okay, what are the physics of this world? In farce, if something is said, well, or at least in farce, you can have it. So if something is said, that is precisely what happens, and it's usually immediately. Usually immediately you have something said, and then it happens exactly how it is said it can happen. Usually unexpected because especially in English, this might be true of other languages, but we use a lot of allusions to what we mean. So for example, drinking problem means alcohol abuse, stuff like that.
Right.
And so you just don't use those. You do exactly what you say you're going to do every single time. And it always catches me off by surprise. Like a third of the jokes in Airplane is the same joke over and over again. It's just someone says something and then that's what happens. And you get a million different jokes out of that same premise. It's just, oh, they said this happens? Well, look at that happening. Or just playing with the language. Another really quotable line every time. It's like, these people need a hospital. A hospital? What is it? It's a big building with patients in it, but but that's not important right now. That's exactly what he said, but it's just recontextualized.
And that, but yeah, because that's used again.
Yeah. The cockpit.
Yeah.
They did the same thing as the cockpit. What is it? It's a small room where the pilots fly the plane, but that's not important right now.
Oh no, there's a problem in the
Oh yeah,
right?
there's a problem in the cockpit.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
No, but it's brilliant because you can just do that by playing with language. If you don't already study language just in general, but you want to write comedy, start with language. Think of how you can play with the word. My favorite joke that I do in conversation all the time, and nobody else laughs, but I think it's hilarious, so I always do it, is someone will say something, and I will flip words around. I will just switch 2 words within the sentence and do that. And it can completely change things. And no one understands why I do it, but it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. So just think, how can I, if you're doing language jokes, like actual jokes where the language is dependent on the punchline as opposed to the physicality of a punchline, just think, all right, have them say something serious, see if you can play around with the words, or see if you can say something and have it mean something entirely different than what it actually means without changing the line. Just write a line and think, how can a character respond to this in the worst possible way possible? It works every time. It works every time. Those 2 jokes combined, like impossible physics and word jokes, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
That's 50% of the movie. Just right there. 50% of the movie is those jokes right there. And those are like probably some of the funniest 50% of the movie too.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And there's I mean, when you look at a lot of the kind of comedy films from that time, it was like kind of the like late 70s and into the 80s, a lot of them use that sort of style. I mean, I know one of the other friggin' hilarious films that is also a Leslie Nielsen film is The Naked Gun.
Naked Gun, yes.
And that's another one of those that uses a lot of those elements. Yeah. And I don't know, have you ever seen Top Secret?
I have seen Top Secret. I love Top Secret.
That's another one. You know, there was a time where they would really hammer in those style and the way that they told those jokes, and all of those were hilarious films. Yeah. So
and here's what I would say. So Naked Gun, for those of you who don't know, was actually a TV show called Police Squad that ran for 6 episodes and then was canceled because it was too funny. No joke. They canceled it because it was a show.
No joke.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Look at that. I'm just on fire with him today. But it was too funny. One of the producers was like, this is a television show that you need to watch, and nobody actually watches their television. And to an extent, he was right, especially at the time, TV was something that you had on in the background. And that show, Police Squad, is the funniest show if you watch it. If you just have it on, it's not like The Office,
right,
where like it can be on in the background and you tune in and out of it, and it's still funny. Just as funny as if you were like actually sitting down and fully watching it. It's a show that you need to see. You can't like be distracted while watching it because it has your attention the entire time. And I want us to do an episode on those 6 episodes one day because they're brilliant.
And we definitely can because I have also seen Police Squad and it is just hilarious.
Yeah. But so they took after the show got scrapped, they took the bits that they had written but now couldn't use, and they made Police Squad, not Police, Naked Gun.
Yeah.
But sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh no, you're good. I did. Now I don't remember. I think it. I don't know. We can move on.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to touch on a few more joke types that are in the film because again, this film is exemplary for these things. I know this is dumb. I love studying comedy in movies and TV. And so I know I'm like deconstructing them and going most people when they do comedies, they think we don't have to take it seriously. When they go into it, it's like if something goes wrong, they're like, okay, it's a comedy, it will work. Don't ever do that. Never ever do that. That's so dumb. If you go into something being with the intention to make it good, and then it turns out bad, you can't play it off as, oh well, it's a comedy, it will play into camp or something like that. You need to go in with the intention of this will be good or this will be bad and it will be funny because it's bad. Airplane went the route of this will be good and decided to make it good. They did not compromise on it. Everything that they did works well. They didn't just sort of wave their hand, wave anything. They said, this is how the joke has to play out. This is the setup. This is the punchline. This is how things have to go. Put effort into your comedies. Please, for the love of... That's why a lot of the newer comedies aren't that good. Because they want improv all the time. Right. Well, and so you can save a lot of money and stuff. And yeah, you can get funny bits out of improv. And there are some really good improvisational actors. But you're not going to get a good movie out of it. Because your actors, while they might be really funny, aren't that great of storytellers within each scene individually, especially if you're filming out of order and stuff like that, which you often have to do. What you should do is write your jokes, really think, do they work? How can I fix this? If something doesn't work, cut it, get rid of it. If it does work, hold on to it and fight for your life to have it. But don't hand wave it. Don't half-ass it. Comedy is something that should be taken way more seriously because it's so hard to do right. And you look, the past few years, probably some of the best comedies have been like Jojo Rabbit was really good. Yeah. And that was like a comedy drama too. And so, but like we haven't had too many just straight comedies. They've all been like action adventures with comedic elements because that's how Marvel does. But we need like really good comedies back. I really believe that. We need people who are willing to take the art of laughs so much more seriously than they have been and actually put the effort into it.
Well, yeah, and to kind of build upon that, I think that era with Airplane, and especially Airplane, when it was, the rapid fire of all of these hilarious jokes that you actually had to think about. And that was, I think, something that was really good about the film. And that's, I think, kind of the difference between Airplane and a lot of comedy movies today. A lot of them are kind of like a lot of them are like dirty jokes,
Yeah,
it's very, it's not as, I think, well thought out.
And let me. I say there's a lot of the same joke. Like Airplane is built upon the same like 3 jokes. What I mean by that is that Airplane has the same 3 premises, most of it. Most modern comedy films have the same 3 jokes,
right?
And it's not funny. It's always either super crass humor, so like farts, dicks, stuff like that. Just anything that you can get immediate laugh out of. Like political jokes, which I don't particularly like because they're too easy. People feel obligated to laugh at political jokes, especially if they agree with them. You will never get a bigger laugh than if you just like open up a film, someone says something stupid, and you're like, "What are you, a Republican?" You'll get a massive laugh. No joke, you will get a huge laugh. Or if you're just like, "Oh, okay, Trump," you'll get a huge laugh, and it might be funny, but trust me, it's not warranted. It's just not that funny, and I never want a joke that people are obligated to laugh at.
Right.
Because that's so lame. That's so easy. Why would you want that?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think and to kind of, I think that because I know we were talking about not all comedy films are like that today, but unfortunately, I think a lot of them are, and yeah, and like what you said, we need a good classic,
good classic style comedy.
Airplane, a style. And I think, the show Family Guy.
Yes, that's the problem, is that we only see this style of humor in like animation, and I don't like it. It's suited well for animation because the logic is cartoony.
Yeah,
things happen that shouldn't happen. And I can get into that after you finish your point here, but
Right.
we only see it in animation, and we shouldn't only see it in animation.
And yes, I Family Guy does have the dirty jokes but the way that it's executed is more along the lines of like it's intelligently written, like to the point where, you know, there's a reason for it, kind of, in a way, and that's kind of something that was lacking in some of the other comedy films.
The failing of Family Guy from a modern sense isn't the humor itself, it's the setup. Because most of the problem with it is that a lot of their jokes are interchangeable regardless of the story. Because you can have, like, the jokes happen, but it's like they'll say a line and they'll say, "Oh, this is just like that one time," but the cutaway isn't actually related to the line. It's just, it seems that way because they said, "This is just like this time." But the joke itself isn't actually related or adding to the story, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so it makes for some really funny jokes, but at the same time, so that's a failing that people don't quite see with Family Guy. They're like, "Oh, well, it's not good anymore," but they don't quite know why. It's because everything's unrelated. They just keep cutting away, and it doesn't actually build upon the story. But that said, you did touch on something like that I think is really cool, which is cartoon physics. Because I had sort of touched about, you know, like the physics, like you need to understand the physics of your world. Something that a lot of modern movies do, like modern comedy movies do, because modern movies do this all the time. So let's look at Harry Potter, for example. Magic needs to be explained. Like, magic needs to be possible is the thing. So even if magic doesn't really exist, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but magic doesn't really exist, but they still explain it as to why it does exist in the movie. Even if it's just a hand wave, it's like, "Oh, well, you can't know about it because you were a muggle, but now you're a real wizard." And so you know, everything was kept secret, and this is the origins of magic. Airplane does not do any of that. In modern movies, there's a sense of like, you need to justify everything. And for a drama, yeah, maybe you do.
Yeah.
Because for drama, people can only suspend their disbelief to a certain degree. But with comedy, that's a lot more fluid, especially if you just reject the premise of the question and just say, "Why do you want answers? Do you need answers?" And so, like, for example, there are like 3 suicides on the plane. 3 of them. 3 total. And they always happen after Ted finishes telling a flashback. Every time that Ted flashes back telling someone a story, they kill themselves out of boredom. There's an old lady who hangs herself from the overhead compartment. That's not possible. That isn't possible. They don't explain how she did it. Where did she get the rope? Is no one else going to notice the old lady's feet just swinging in the frame? No, they don't need to. And they don't need to explain to you why she did. You can piece together, okay, she killed herself because he was boring. And that's it. Another guy is a Japanese officer. What is a Japanese officer doing on a plane? Like a World War II Japanese officer. And he pulls out his katana and he commits seppuku. No one notices. Those characters never come back. Nothing happens. Another guy douses himself with gasoline and drops a match in his lap and blows himself up.
Or I thought he was about to do that.
Yeah, well, he was about to do that, and then Ted finishes his story and he goes, "Ooh," blows out the match, puts it down, but it's still hot, so he blows up. The plane doesn't explode or rip in half. They don't need to explain, "Oh, the plane was magic, and so this stuff happened."
Or why the guy
how to get gasoline in a match on an airplane.
Like,
there was no question as to how any of it happened. You didn't need the explanation. So that's probably what I mean when I say understand the physics. Impossible physics.
Right.
You can have things that can't happen, like magic and stuff like that, without having to explain it. In this world, things can just happen. Things can appear and disappear. People can die and come back and whatever, and it doesn't matter. And so the audience doesn't question it because I say cartoon for lack of a better word, but that's just our modern understanding of it because we only see it in cartoons now. But we as a whole, society as a whole, should have more comedies that commit to impossible physics, by which, of course, I mean things that cannot be explained and so thus are not.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of that. And like what you said earlier is you can definitely see that in Airplane, and it is lacking in a lot of live action comedy films today. So basically we need a good comedy today. Good.
And so
Like Airplane.
yeah, like Airplane or Naked Gun or anything that Mel Brooks did, really. Like
Or not that or Mel Brooks didn't do those, but
no, or anything that Mel Brooks has done,
yeah.
like in addition to that.
Because his comedy, and we can delve into that when we do Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But
And like I don't want this to be like a complete disparagement of modern comedy, because
yeah,
there are some good ones out there. Like I said, Jojo Rabbit was hilarious.
Yeah.
Things like that. Modern comedies fail in the sense that they don't put in the effort. And that's why I push so hard of like, please put in the effort, because everyone's just like, okay, it's a comedy movie. It's cheap to make, stuff like that. Airplane was cheap to make. That was only $3.5 million. And it's, and they did a good job. And so it grossed a crap load of money, especially like in the aftermarket.
Yeah. It's made a lot.
A lot of money now, and it's in the top 100 films of all times. One of the only comedies to do that.
Yeah,
like that is nothing short of amazing on a budget of $3.5 million, because the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrahams put in effort. They thought, okay, how do we do this? How if we were taking this seriously, what would we do? It's just whenever you want to film something that's super funny, think if this was a completely serious scene, that if I was taking it entirely seriously, not like I'm not filming a joke right now. I'm filming a scene. This thing has to happen. How would I film it? How would I frame it? How much time would I spend on it? How much time how integral is this to, the scene? You really need to put in effort as if it is any other scene, because that's what you're contending with. You're contending with people who cared and who understood. So I'll get off my high horse now, I guess. But you could tell I love this stuff. I love comedy and film a lot.
And especially and like for this film in particular, it is a classic. And we are assuming that everyone who's listening or watching has seen it.
Yeah.
But if you have
we've
not,
read our synopsis.
no. I mean, it's basically about this guy who used to be a military pilot, and he like was afraid of flying because didn't he get shot down?
Yeah, he got shot down, and a lot of his squadron died.
Yeah.
And so he. And so his whole thing is that he doesn't want to fly, but after a bunch of people get food poisoning, including the pilots, he sort of is called upon to fly the plane. And the only reason he's on the plane is to try and get his girlfriend back.
Right. So that's kind of the premise. But if you have not seen it, we strongly recommend that you watch it, because it is hilarious. And it's definitely a classic. So, well,
I think that about wraps it up. If you guys have any like questions about comedy, just post them in the comments. I'll see if we can talk about it on maybe, because I know this is like a book club, but for films and TV and stuff. But I don't know, maybe we could do like a mini episode one day where we take like audience questions, or like if you have a question about filmmaking, how to get something produced, how to like write things, or if you just have questions about comedy in general. I think that would be a really fun episode that we could do at some point.
Yeah, if we schedule it and people can. Yeah. And if you have any like film suggestions that you would like us to discuss, you can send them our way. through through Facebook. We're on Facebook.
Or through the YouTube comments.
Yeah,
I don't
through
know if
YouTube.
Spotify has comments. I don't know. We're gonna get a Twitter page soon.
A
too.
Twitter page, and if right now the podcast is on, so the video's on YouTube. And I forgot to mention this the last episode, but and you can listen to it on Spotify, Amazon Music, and we will hopefully get it up on Apple Music here soon. So
yeah. So all you iPhone users can stop complaining.
Yeah.
All zero complaints can stop filing in.
Yes, for sure. And so yeah, I think that we covered it. But yeah, please send any suggestions that you have. And our email, you can email us to, is premierreviews1@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our
just
email.
Just straight Premiere Reviews was taken.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't exist anywhere, but
they're there somewhere. I don't know.
They're out there waiting.
So, but yes, all right. So thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next episode. I'm Will.
I'm Gabe, and this was Premiere Reviews.